before you do LinkedIn well, you need to do you well. Like, this actually isn't a LinkedIn game. This is an understanding of who you are on LinkedIn. So the mistake that people make is that when we're talking about personal branding, and every entrepreneur should be talking about personal branding and thinking about personal branding, the mistake that people make is that they overemphasize the word personal. This is not about being personal. This is about the other word, being a brand.
Trying to reach my goals, got no time for mistakes. Yeah, I'm standing on business, need a big safe. Suited up, got the blueprint in the briefcase. It's go time on the grind, needs a big stakes.
Broadcasting from the Franchise Sidekick studio, welcome to the Sidekick Life. Get ready for stories of passion, problem solvings, and success from those living life on their terms. All right, welcome back to the Sidekick Life, the place for entrepreneurs. And speaking of entrepreneurs, we are here with one of the best, the guy that sees it all. We are here with Jason Feifer, editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine. Jason, so excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think let's just start by digging right into the Entrepreneur Magazine part, and then we'll go from there.
For sure.
I know you are a man of many talents.
I appreciate that.
But tell us what that means. What does the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine do?
It's funny, I get that question a lot. What on earth is that title? It sounds really cool, right? So I can just march around and use it and people open doors for me, but what is it actually? So you could think of me as a hybrid of chief customer or trust officer. I'm the guy who's primarily interfacing with the audience. I'm the guy who's out there, who's talking with entrepreneurs, whose job is to connect with them and also make sure that I'm hearing what the audience, what the world of entrepreneurship is saying, and then bringing it back to the brand. I'm also chief content officer. So I'm the guy who is overseeing what we're putting out, making sure that I am establishing, not just me, but, leading with the team, the voice of the brand, the perspective of the brand, the value of the brand. So you can almost think of it as this. When we have big sales meetings with clients and I go with the sales team, my job is to start talking first, to establish why we exist, why we matter to that audience, and how we're listening to that audience. And then I let the sales guys do their thing.
That's amazing. So I want to know, how you got in this role. Like you had to tell us your backstory a little bit. How did you get in this role?
Yes, I totally stumbled into it. Absolutely unplanned. So I started as a community newspaper reporter, and I graduated Clark University in 2002. And had no idea what I wanted to do, except that I knew that I liked writing. And so I thought, let me get into that. I got this job at this tiny little newspaper, circulation 6,000 in central Massachusetts, covering nothing. There's nothing going on. I'm going to school plays and writing about them. And then about a year in, I got deeply frustrated because, I had big ambitions. Everyone we're talking to on this show today has big ambitions. And I pictured myself working for or running a giant media publication and speaking to millions of people. And here I was writing this little story about the local diner. And I was bitter. And the reason I was bitter was because I realized I was waiting for people to come to me. And that's not how it works. People don't come to you. Nobody says, oh my God, that great story you wrote about the local diner, come on down, you're covering Washington now for the New York Times. It doesn't work that way. That's not what happens. You have to go to them. And so I quit that paper and I sat in my bedroom in Holden, Massachusetts, paying $500, $600 a month in rent next to a graveyard, dumpy place. And I started cold pitching to editors. And here's why. I didn't have the language for this at the time, but this is what I've come to realize. And the reason I'm spending so much time on this one little moment in my career, to your broader question about how I got here, is because it was this insight, honestly, that accelerated my career and that I think is critical for anybody at any stage of whatever it is that they do to be thinking about. In front of you guys, in front of me, in front of us all right now, there are two sets of opportunities. I think of them as opportunity set A, opportunity set B. Opportunity set A is everything that's asked of you. So if we're talking to somebody who has a job right now and is aspiring to be an entrepreneur, that is, you show up at work and you've got a boss and that boss expects things of you and you got to do them. You're going to be measured on it. That's opportunity set A. Or you run a company and there are expectations surrounding you of your clients and your customers, whatever. Fulfilling those things that are expected and asked of you is opportunity set A. Then there's opportunity set B. Opportunity set B is everything that is available to you that nobody is asking you to do. And that could be anything. That could be you like podcasts, start a podcast. Nobody asked you to do it. That could be learning something new. That could be starting a side hustle. That could be anything. I am going to tell you this. What I have found in my career and starting at that moment, at that little newspaper, which I'll circle back to in a second, what I found is that opportunity set B is always more important, infinitely more important. If all you do is focus on the things that people ask of you, you will only be qualified to do the things that you already do. But opportunity set B is where growth comes from. That is where you discover new things that people need, new things that you can create. Everything that I have done throughout my career is based on opportunity set B. And it started back then when I realized that if I sat around at that little newspaper and waited for people to recognize me, I was never going anywhere. So instead, I quit. I sat in my bedroom. I started pitching the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I started writing for them. And that is what accelerated my career. And that is what I still do today. So how did I get to Entrepreneur Magazine? Honestly, it was like I kept working at different magazines. I got that, there was that newspaper job, then another newspaper job, then some magazine jobs. I got a Men's Health and Fast Company, whatever. But I was always constantly doing things outside of that role too. Whether it was writing, teaching, starting to consult with brands, whatever it was, I was making sure that I was expanding myself beyond whatever a job happened to offer me. And that is how today I am the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, but also have my own companies, advise a lot of others. I play many, many roles because I am obsessed with what people are not asking me to do.
That is so good. And I agree completely. Opportunity set B is where all the best opportunities are.
Yeah.
And so how do you choose? Because now that you do have more clout, more status, whatever you want to call it, I'm sure opportunity set B is a lot larger than it used to be.
Sure is.
So how do you choose which ones you go after?
Yeah, well, that is a work in progress, and it will be for everyone, right? I've certainly said yes to many things that I should have said no to and have stretched myself too thin. I have these conversations, I'm sure you guys have these conversations, which is, what the hell are we working for? Like, what's the point of this? You know, what do you actually want? And certainly as you start, I just turned 45, as you start to hit this midway point, you start to really ask these questions. And I came up with this answer for myself, which is I realized that if I were to step back and think what makes me happiest on just a regular, everyday basis, you know, you can't just index the super highs because the super highs don't happen all the time. And if all you did is chase the super highs, then the super highs would start to feel flat and you'd need even higher things. And that's no good. So those are great, right? Love the super highs, super lows, you just got to deal with. But what is making me happy on a day-to-day basis? And I came up with this realization. The thing that makes me happiest is when I am in physical motion and I am engaging with interesting people on interesting ideas. Physical motion, interesting people, interesting ideas. I started to call it state of being. This is my state of being. Everything that I'm doing needs to, in some way, build or maintain that specific state of being. And I really love that as a way of thinking because it creates so many opportunities around me of things that I might want to do that didn't match some narrow early definition of what I might have thought of before. Malcolm Gladwell told me when I interviewed him a long time ago, Malcolm Gladwell told me, self-conceptions are powerfully limiting. That if you have too narrow an idea of what you do, you will turn down all the opportunities along the way. So that's how I filter it. I say yes to a lot of things. I see if I like it, then I will say no or say no more. I am always looking to stay in motion.
Love that. I'm going to come back to Entrepreneur Magazine if we could, just because I don't want to get off it too quick. We've got a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs and current entrepreneurs. And so talk a little bit about the work that Entrepreneur Magazine Media does. How do they help the entrepreneur?
This brand has been around for 40-something years. I should know the exact number, but I don't. And in that time, it has had one mission, and that is to serve entrepreneurs, to help people grow. I try to tell myself this. If we're making, we make lots of products. We have a print magazine, we have a website read by millions, we have podcasts, we have videos, we have events, and so on. But I always try to tell myself, let's just pick the news, let's just pick the magazine. We're making a great magazine. We work hard on it. I try to remind myself, nobody wants a magazine. Nobody wants a magazine, right? Why would you want a magazine?
Sure.
You know what you want? You want to build a business. And the magazine is one solution that you have to do that because you're going to learn from it. right? Every entrepreneur needs to understand that nobody gives a damn about the solution that you have. They don't care at all about the solution that you have. What they care about is the benefit. What they care about is what you enable them to achieve in their own words. So we need to understand that. And so that is what I spend a lot of time thinking about is let's not overly obsess with all the minutia of magazine making. Let's just make sure that this is really useful. And this website, let's just make sure that the stuff that we're publishing is really useful, that the way that we're engaging with entrepreneurs is really useful. That, I think, is the North Star for a brand like this. There are infinite ways to do it. We're in a very evolving media environment right now, changing by the day. And if entrepreneur, it's not my company, right? I'm an employee and I've been there for 10 years. But if entrepreneur is going to survive for the next 10 years, like any company has to think about, it can't just be a media company. It has to be more. And that's what we're actively thinking about. And that's what's most exciting.
Sounds like you are around some amazing people, and it sounds like you love innovation and things that are coming down the pipeline. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, like, AI, I want to get into this. Is that cool?
Hey,
Can we get into
let's talk about it.
Because this affects all of us, and it affects you, and you're in Entrepreneur Magazine. So, tell me the landscape right now. Like, how do you feel about AI right now?
I think that AI is a microwave oven. That's what it is. It's a microwave oven, which is to say that it is amazing technology. Try to explain a microwave oven to someone from 100 years ago. You can't. It's in everybody's home. But here's the thing about the microwave oven. You don't cook every meal in the microwave. You know why? Because we've had the microwave for long enough that we figured out what it's good for and what it's not good for. That experimentation already happened. It hasn't happened yet with AI. We're trying it out on everything. So there are a bazillion startups out there, each of which are claiming that AI is now going to do blank. And as a result, everybody is freaked out that AI is going to radically change, or it is going to completely disrupt, or it is going to completely eliminate their value and purpose in the world. And I just don't think that that's true. I just don't. Instead, I think that AI is going to be good for some things, and it's going to be really bad at some other things, and it will be supplemental in many ways. And we need to have the patience to see that play out. I think that we should all be part of that experimentation, but we all need to take the temperature down and not be panicky about it, because when you're panicky, all you do is try to hold on to what came before instead of being open to what comes next.
You said you anticipate a lot of good and a lot of bad. Let's focus a little bit on the good. Where do you see the good coming from the things that you do day to day?
Me personally, day to day, I mean, I use AI to write a lot of first drafts for things. I have a newsletter, a personal newsletter, goes out to 75,000 people, and having a trained AI tool now, specifically that understands my newsletter, means that instead of sitting down and writing something from scratch, I can record a voice memo of my big idea and the stories that I want to tell and the way that I want to weave it together. And then I give it to the AI and it writes out a pretty good first draft. Not publishable. I'm not sending people what AI produced, but it's going to cut down by a fourth the amount of time that I'm going to spend. And so that is wonderful. I post every day on LinkedIn. I've started to use AI tools to help accelerate that. Again, you cannot replace yourself and your thinking, but you can definitely replace the formatting and just the time and labor of thinking up the great hook and so on. So I'm seeing it for that. But I'm also seeing just really interesting experimentation out in the marketplace where I don't know. I was just talking to the president of Alibaba.com, and they just launched this really interesting new tool. I hope I don't butcher this. I think it was called Axio, A-C-C-I-O. And essentially you go to Axio and you tell it the product that you would like to make, right? For those who don't know, Alibaba essentially it's a sourcing platform. So if you want to make a pair of headphones, you can find a manufacturer that'll make those headphones. It can create that connection for you. So you could go and you could say, I want to make headphones for children that have ADHD. I don't know, and it will, using its vast knowledge and data of products and what works and the nuance of that, it will help you then instantly come up with concepts, design them, and find the right suppliers. Now, is that going to be perfect? No, but it's going to give you a big starting point. And I talked to the guy's name is Kuo, Kuo Zhang, the president of Alibaba.com. And he essentially walked me through how they stepped back and they asked, what are the primary pain points of our customer and our user? And then how do we start to utilize the data that we have to start to turn those pain points, which are trapped inside of unanswerable questions, how do we start making those unanswerable questions feel a little more answerable? And if AI can do that, then that's incredible. And it speeds up creation and it reduces errors and it allows people to build the things that they really want. And I love that.
Hey Sidekicks, it's Ryan Zink here. I'll never forget the moment I opened my first franchise, helping my first customer, hiring my first employee, and cashing my first check. It wasn't just a business, it was the beginning of living life on my terms. When Tyler and I started Franchise Sidekick, we reimagined how people would find brands and succeed in franchise ownership. We're the fastest growing franchise advisory group in the country because we built a smarter, tech-driven system. Our approach has helped people just like you purchase over 10,000 franchise locations, and we've earned a 5-star rating on Google doing it. Now we're sharing exactly how we do it in a quick 20-minute webinar titled 10,000 Locations and Counting, the Franchise Buyer's Blueprint. If you're ready to explore a path to financial freedom and take control over your future, this is your first step. And did I mention, our services are always 100% free. Click the link below to sign up now because you deserve to live life on your terms.
I love it. I got so many questions out of that, but I want to go back
Sure.
to LinkedIn. So
Okay.
you have a killer LinkedIn presence.
Thank you.
You're doing a great job with it. You're using AI for a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. How do you figure this out? Like, is it just content over and over again? What's your philosophy? How do you do LinkedIn so well?
Okay, so before you do LinkedIn well, you need to do you well. Like this actually isn't a LinkedIn game. This is an understanding of who you are on LinkedIn. So the mistake that people make is that when we're talking about personal branding, and every entrepreneur should be talking about personal branding and thinking about personal branding, the mistake that people make is that they overemphasize the word personal. This is not about being personal. This is about the other word, being a brand. A brand is 3 things. A brand is simple, a brand is repeatable, a brand is scalable. You have to be simple, repeatable, and scalable. So that means that you have to start with who is your audience and what do they want and what are their pain points and how can you be a solution to them through content and content that drives to your other solutions. Once you've thought about that, you can start to think about, okay, well, that's going to start making me simple, right? So now I understand what I am to people. I'm not the guy who's going to tell you what I had for breakfast. I'm the guy who tells you how to get on retail shelves because that's what I do every day is I get brands onto retail shelves. I don't want to hear anything else from you. Just that. Just tell me that. Then you need to start to become, right? I say simple, repeatable, and scalable. So then you have to start to become repeatable. Well, how do you become repeatable? You have to understand who you are and what you have to say such that you can find new ways to say the same old thing over and over and over and over again. I suggest that everybody build what I call a 5% character for themselves. So think about it. You guys and everyone who's listening right now, you guys are 100% people, right? Can you confirm?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, just make sure. Yeah. So 100% people. 100% of that is absolutely not relevant, or rather, not all 100% of that is relevant to the people that you serve, right?
Sure.
There are plenty of things in your life that you wake up every morning thinking about that are not relevant to the people that you serve. So don't tell them that because that's boring and confusing and annoying. Instead, think about the 5% of you that is incredibly relevant to those people. What is that 5% that you have to say that just kills it every time, that people need? And then once you understand that, you can start to create a character around it. You are talking to that character right now with me. Have I strayed from the relevancy to this audience? No. I also am talking in a voice that I will not talk in when we are not recording this. This is my character voice, and it's good on podcasts and it's good on stage, and I slip right into it. And this character also has a wealth of things that this character talks about, and also some guardrails of things that this character won't talk about. You ask me a question about politics, I'm going to get off that real fast. I'm not going to go there at all. So once I understand my 5% character and who I am and how I embody it when I show up on social media or on a stage like your stage, then the next thing is to make it scalable. And that's where you just get really good at writing content.
I love it. Jeez. And I tell you, I follow you on LinkedIn, and the things that you put out there are very entertaining. I love the consumer packaging. I don't know where you find these things, but I'm like, who in the world knows that what the old can of so-and-so drink looks like compared to the new one?
Yeah.
Not only do you know that, but you know the increase in sales that it created from the new one, which I guess leads a little bit to the other thing that you do.
Well, actually, let's go, because that, before we go to whatever you were about to tee up there, we go backwards, because you know how I know all that stuff? AI. That's how. AI is not writing those posts, right? So like, let's just take an example here. Let's say that I did a post about the old and the new RX bar design, right? So if we can all picture the RX bar, it's just got that list of ingredients on the cover of the package. 1 egg, or it's 3 eggs, or however many eggs. Yeah. So here's where a post like that comes from. First of all, we have to step back into thinking creatively about content production. So something that I know about LinkedIn is that you can't just post interesting content, you also have to post interesting visuals. The visual grabs people, right? I think about writing content on LinkedIn as having a 3-hook structure. And the 3-hook structure looks like this. The first thing is the visual. It has to be grabby. That's your hook number 1. It just stops the scroll. So it has to be interesting. It has to capture people. And then the second thing has to be the first. So then hook number 2 is the first part of what you write, which is signaling who you're talking to and why you would be relevant to them. And then the third hook is teasing what value will come if they read more. So for example, the RX bar, it looks like this. It would say, I don't remember this exactly off the top of my head, but you've got this old design of the RX bar, which if nobody's seen it, go Google it. It is hilariously bad, hilarious. And then it's right next to the RX bar that we all know. And I just put them side by side in Canva, right? It took me 3 seconds. And then I wrote something like ignored with an arrow pointing down to the original RX bar. And then over the new one, I wrote whatever number I found, maybe the acquisition number or an annual sales number or something, some big number, and so that's the image. And that makes you interested. And then the thing that I wrote as the hook, the first thing that people are going to see, would be some version of RX bar redesigned its packaging and then hit, I'm going to make a number up, $250 million in sales because they understood this key thing about branding, right? You see what I did there? So hook number 1 is this really compelling image. Hook number 2 is talking about redesign and sales so that anybody who is in branding, anybody who is building CPG, that's going to be instantly relevant to them. And then number 3 is telling you what's going to come next. This rule of branding, something like that. So now I have hooked them 3 different ways, and then we're going to move on. So now, why am I building it like that to start? Number 1 is because I'm always thinking about the visuals. What visual is going to grab people? And then I also need to have smart contextual information so that I'm not just a guy sharing a bunch of crap that I found on the internet. And so that is where I use AI. What I do is I go to ChatGPT and I said, tell me transformational redesigns in the consumer packaged goods space. Like what redesigns were considered to be the most, and it gives me a whole long list. And then I go and I find them online, I look at them, and then I see, oh, the RX bar. Okay, let me take a look at what they did. Oh, that's really interesting. They simplified that. And I come up with the idea of what they did, right? I never outsource my ideas. But once I have an idea of what I want to communicate in this, then I start asking ChatGPT to do some research for me. Can you find out what the annual sales or the acquisition price of RX bar was? Just get some facts out of it. And then I double check it because ChatGPT can be wrong. Yep. And then once I have all that, then I'm ready to write the post. And that sounds like a lot of work. But you know what? That post got like 17 million impressions, and it drove probably thousands of new followers for me. So it's worth putting that kind of work into this stuff.
Absolutely. And I was going to move off LinkedIn, but now I want to come back because I think it's so interesting. Do you, a lot of people that have audiences on LinkedIn or grow them, they not only talk about the post, but then the re-engagement and the strategy after the fact. Do you have an entire kind of engagement strategy, or for you, is it just really compelling and interesting posts?
So it's primarily compelling and interesting posts. I do have a couple other things that are going on. Number one, I always make sure to engage in the comments of my posts. I don't reply to every comment, because especially on a post that goes viral, that would just take you all day. Yeah. But I do it enough so that people always feel like I am reachable. You know, to go back to the 5% character idea, I think in the same way that when you have a brand, you should be thinking about brand attributes. What are the attributes of this brand that we want people to know about? You should do that for yourself too. Like, what are the things that you want to live up to? What are your brand attributes? And one of them for me is accessibility. I think that that's really important. And it also consistently undercuts people's expectations of a guy who has a title editor-in-chief. So if I have this fancy title and they have never been able to reach anybody else in media before, and then they see that I respond to them, that makes fans for life. The most powerful thing you can do is respond to somebody. So I respond to them in comments. I respond to them in DMs. If people DM me, if you listening right now, DM me on LinkedIn, I literally will reply. I guarantee it. All of them. Wow. Unless it's a pitch. Yeah. Like if it's just like, can you write about this in Entrepreneur? I don't have time for that all day. But if it's like a real, genuine outreach, I reply to everybody. And so I am engaging in the comments. I am responding in the DMs. And then also, this is a thing that I've outsourced to my assistant, is when somebody connects with me, right? Because on LinkedIn, it requires the approval. I have my assistant go through manually. Have him do this manually instead of automated. He goes through every request and he sends this message. And this message is basically like, hey, thanks for reaching out. I love connecting with people who are inspired by their work, or so, I can't remember exactly what it says. And here's something that inspires me lately. And then I give them a link to my newsletter. And then I ask them what inspires them. And people respond to it a lot, and people follow the newsletter a lot as a result. Now, the reason why we do this manually is because I don't want him to send that for CEOs of major companies or CMO, right? Like, I don't want them getting that message. Yeah. And so we have to filter it that way.
I tried to have an automated message at one time, and after a week, I'm like, this just doesn't work.
You can't do it. Yeah. No, the risk is too high.
It's incredible, Jason. Great system. Now, I should know this, but are you solely focused on LinkedIn? Are you doing Instagram? Are you doing other channels like this? Or are you just focused on LinkedIn?
So I've been primarily focused on LinkedIn the last couple of years, where I have 240,000 followers now. Instagram, I honestly had left a little dormant for a while. And the reason for that was because as it shifted very heavily into short form video, I am not practiced in short form video, and it was taking me too long to come up with ideas. And I thought, let me just over index on the place where I know I can have a significant impact, and I'll catch up to the other ones. Yep. And so now that I've got LinkedIn down as a system, I am shifting energy back to Instagram. So my goal, I set a goal of 1 short form video a week, and I reached it. And now I've upped it for myself to 2 short form videos a week. People always ask me about cadence for social media. And the answer is literally, what can you do that you can stick to? Mm-hmm. Like, if I tell somebody who's new to LinkedIn, you have to post every day, they will quit instantly. So what's the point? So instead, how about, can you do it once a month? Yes? Okay, once you got that down, can you double that and do it twice a month? And let's work up to something that's actually reasonable. So I'm doing that myself on Instagram now. And so now I have like 87,000 followers over there.
Only 87,000. Small potatoes.
Yeah.
That's a nice segue to the question I was going to ask.
Sure.
We went right by this so quickly. You have 240,000 LinkedIn followers.
Yeah.
That feels like a lifetime of effort. How long has it taken you to build that, and how much time do you put in every week?
So it was really interesting. It took me a couple years to get to the first 100,000. And then last year, 2024, I got from 100 to 200. And I think that I benefited from a couple things. LinkedIn had rolled out video, and I was early on it in a way. I was doing these advertising breakdowns where I'd find ads so what I was doing was I was going onto Instagram and I was flipping around and I was looking for ads that people posted that had overperformed, right? The McDonald's ad that just got like 75 million views or whatever. And then that is telling you something about the market, which is for some reason or another, people love this ad. It resonates, it starts strong, it holds their attention. So why don't I take that ad and move it over to LinkedIn and then do the thing that I did with the RX bar, which is then surround it with smart, insightful analysis. And that was killing it for me. Like that was doing incredibly well. So that was great. And then this year it slowed way down, and not just for me, but for everybody. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with Dan Roth, the editor-in-chief over at LinkedIn. And he's told me that to LinkedIn, they think that if something goes viral, something went wrong. That's how they think of it. They don't want things going viral on their platform. They're actively tweaking their algorithm to stop things from going viral.
I don't understand that. Can you explain why? Why don't they want things to go viral?
Yeah, sure. So the thing that I'm doing on LinkedIn, which is where I'm trying to reach a huge audience and then capture that audience, that is not actually the typical user behavior on LinkedIn. That's not what most people should be doing per LinkedIn. And I agree with them, right? I'm playing a different game because I come from a world of mass media, and a lot of my value is driven by the perception that I reach lots of people. The more LinkedIn followers I have, in theory, the more somebody is willing to pay me to stand on their stage. But that's not most people's business, right? Most people's business is, again, I use this example of, I help get products on retail shelves, right? So that's my friend Matt Adelman is the inspiration for that very specific example. That's what he does. He works for a company called the Genesis Company. He helps products get on retail shelves. And so he's got a LinkedIn profile that is very focused on that, where he's walking around Target and he's taking photos of shelves, and then he's talking about what he sees, right? Like this category is really shifting and here's why, or like this is what you need to understand about. And those are not going to pop off. Those are not getting millions of impressions, but they also don't need to. What they really need to do is just reach his target audience of CPG founders who are looking for help getting into retail, because that's the thing that's going to convert and is going to make money for him. So he's got like 6,000 followers, and that's great for him because posts do lead to business. And that is what LinkedIn is thinking about. What they want is to make sure that content on LinkedIn drives economic opportunity. And for the vast majority of users on LinkedIn, that does not mean posting viral stuff and reaching tons and tons of people. That means reaching a focused, correct group of people. And so that's why they're optimizing it that way.
Interesting. So the second part of that question, how much time do you think you spend a week on LinkedIn?
Oh, yeah. It's a lot.
Is it?
It's a lot, yeah. So I mean, here's my schedule. My kids go to the bus to go to school. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. They go to the bus at 7:30 in the morning. And then I walk home, which is like 2 blocks away from the bus stop. And I sit down and I make myself breakfast and I spend the first hour on LinkedIn. Now I'm starting to experiment with some AI tool, like specifically an AI tool called Stanley, which like ingests my last 100 posts, identifies patterns of what work best in those posts. It won't write fresh material for you. It needs your ideas, but it'll speed up the process of coming up with a catchy hook, or like organizing some information. So Stanley has shrunk the amount of time that I'm spending on this, which I really love. My aspiration is actually to not be doing this in the morning. It is to go take a walk in the morning, but I've been instead doing LinkedIn. So let's say that was like an hour. So and I post 5 days a week. So that's 5 hours right there. And then throughout my day, I'm just looking at LinkedIn the way that other people look at TikTok. Sure. Yeah. Coming over here, I was in the Uber from the airport to this hotel, and I was mostly looking at LinkedIn and commenting and stuff. So I hesitate to estimate because whatever I say is going to feel gross to me, but I guess I'm going to say like somewhere between like 7 and 10 hours a week on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Though, even though that sounds like a lot, and it is, you said it best, is it adds to your personal brand.
Yes.
And the reason that obviously your title has a lot to do with it, but I think what really put us over the hump to ask you to come and speak on stage for us is because of what you do on LinkedIn. It's so engaging.
That is validating to hear. And I love that.
Yeah.
And like, I love that for a number of reasons that are worth laying out to show people how I'm thinking about this and how they should think too. So number one is LinkedIn has exponential reach. So it's important to be engaging in the platforms that can not just reach the people that you already reach, but can force multiply that. Number two is LinkedIn owns, but I own my LinkedIn channel. I don't own Entrepreneur Magazine. And so I want to always be mindful of what it is that I control. Entrepreneur is an amazing platform, and I'm honored to be there. And it has been a great 10 years, and I hope it'll keep going. But I could be booted out at any time, and I have to be mindful of that. Sure. So I want to optimize for things that I own. So I think it's foolish, frankly, for anybody in my position in media to just simply be relying upon the publication that you work at to be the place where you reach people, because that can get cut off in a heartbeat. Right. So I like that people think of me by the LinkedIn posts more than they think of me by the stuff that I write for Entrepreneur, even though both of them are very valuable, but one of them I own and the other one I don't.
Do you enjoy it? Do you ever get like to the point with content creators, sometimes I feel like they're in that doom loom a little bit, like they have to do it. Do you have days like that, or overall, do you enjoy, interacting and giving this feedback to people and giving these ideas to people?
Oh, I love it. It's the reason I got into this line of work. Look, it's hard at first because what you need, I had this idea, I had this breakthrough. I'll come back to your questions, but to give you some context, I had this breakthrough when I first started doing speaking, which was by watching my father-in-law he's a foreign policy guy. He spent 25 years in the State Department across multiple administrations, Republican and Democratic. And I've seen him speak many times to many different audiences. And what I realized was he was stringing together bits that I had heard in other contexts, right? He would go into this thing and then he'd go into that thing and then he'd go say that thing. And I was like, oh, I think I heard that thing in like a totally different context, like 6 months ago at the German embassy or something. And what I realized is that what he had done without really thinking about it or articulating it this way is that he had built what I think of now as a menu of interlocking parts in his head. And I realized at the very, very beginning of me being a public person, which is really when I got the job at Entrepreneur, that I needed to do the business version of that. I needed to have a menu of interlocking parts in my head. And once you do that, and some of them are short and some of them are long, and their stories and their points, and the better that the more you become familiar with them, the more fluid and lucid you can become in how you use them. And this is what I've been doing with you this entire time, is once you have that menu, and it takes time, then you have all the content that you need. And so I can then see something out in the world and match it to something that I thought of 4 years ago, or that Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank told me on a stage or something, and then boom, now I've got the post, right? It just becomes so much easier. So a long time ago, yes, it was draining and it was hard because I had to sit and really think about but now, I mean, look, I'll show you. What I'm doing is I'm opening my iPhone and I'm going to go to my Reminders app, which is it's a house app that I happen to use instead of as a to-do list. What I use is, check this out. So you see this like insane amount of scrolling text.
Yeah.
Those are all ideas that I have for LinkedIn posts and newsletters.
And you just go and you find the one that's most relevant to you at the time and you dig in.
Yeah. So like a habit to form for anybody who wants to get into this kind of content is the greatest content you will ever find is not going to come to you when you're sitting there in front of a computer. Yeah. It's going to come when you're talking to other people, because someone's going to ask you a question and you're going to say something, and maybe you just thought about that for the first time. You just made a connection, or you told some story that you forgot about until right now, and they're going to say, oh, wow, that's really great. Stop and write that down. Like right now, write that down, because that's content and you can use it later. The mistake that people make is that they're not capturing their ideas in real time when they're actually thinking. We don't sit and think and conjure. human brains remember things by association. Somebody asks you a question and it prompts a thing, and that is why you remembered that other thing. We remember by association. So you have to be in the moment of association to capture the content, and then you can use it later. And once you've built that habit, then this becomes much easier.
And we all have notebooks in our pockets, so there's no excuse not to do it.
There's no excuse.
What's so interesting, we have several kind of content people here at our conference. Donald Miller, I don't know if you know him.
I'm friendly with Donald.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Building a story brand. We interviewed him yesterday. He was on stage today. And you call them interlocking parts. He calls them as 5 sound bites, right? So it's the 5 ways to just explain the thing that you do.
Yeah.
And you use those 5 things over and over and over again.
Right.
Brooke was just up on stage. She's a personal branding consultant, and she said the same thing. She's got her framework to define several things. And so you're all calling it something different, but it's inherently the same thing, and it works.
That's right.
It's not rocket science. It's just this idea of what do you believe in, who are you, and how do you talk about it over and over again.
That's right. And find a way for it to sound distinct from you and ownable, right? Like my term for this is ownable IP. What's your ownable IP? And look, there are only so many ideas in the world, right? I mean, Donald, what he has done in identifying the story brand framework is genius. But actually, all he did was identify patterns that already existed and things that storytellers were already teaching each other. And then he just figured out the right way to tell a different audience, right? So the magic is often not in creating something that nobody's ever heard of. The magic is in figuring out how you can distinctively share it to people in a way in which they will remember it and they will attribute it to you.
You and I were joking about that actually, about how Donald, he's so intelligent, but he took something that everybody had access to and he defined it. And now he's built a career off of that, a very successful career off of that. Yeah, it's so good.
It's incredible.
Yeah. One more LinkedIn question for me anyway, and then maybe we can move on. So to new entrepreneurs, right? They've got a lot on their plate. How important is it to you, how early on that they should be building a personal brand in their business?
So here's my hesitation with this answer, is that when you're a new entrepreneur, you have 7 billion things that you have to do at once, and everyone's going to tell you that they're all important. And that's exhausting. So is this important? Yes. Can I tell you exactly how to prioritize it over other things? I can't, because I don't know what else you're facing right now. But what I can tell you is that, especially in the very early stages of business, people connect with people more than brands. And so you are your greatest asset. You are your brand's greatest asset. People will connect with your brand because they relate to you and the story that you tell. And so you should be forward-facing, and you should figure out how to put yourself out there. And I think it's incredibly important for everybody to do it. Again, is it the most important thing? Not necessarily, but I would put some time and effort into it, and I would start exploring it. I remember talking to a founder who, her name is Jillian, and she had launched this food. It's a food brand. It's a food brand with healthy ingredients, and she wanted to get my take on whether or not she should tell her story as part of this brand. And I said, well, what's the story? And oh my gosh, she told me this heartbreaking story, which is basically that she was on her family was in a car driving somewhere, and they got hit by a drunk driver, and her husband was killed, and she was in a coma, and the children were, thankfully less harmed. And as she came to and she started to rebuild her body and rebuild her life, health became incredibly important to her. And she became really focused on food. And now it is years later, she is remarried, and she wants to bring that to others, all this that she had learned. And I said, Jillian, you have to tell that story. She's like, but it's not distracting, it's not too much. And I said, look, it's all about how you tell the story, right? Whenever you're telling a story, whenever you're talking about you, you're not actually talking about you, you're talking about them. You're talking about the audience. It's the only reason to talk about you. Right? In the framework of Donald Miller, where the customer is the hero and the brand is the guide, like when you tell your story, you get to play 2 roles sort of at the same time. You can be the hero, not your customer's hero, but you can be the stand-in for them, the hero, right? They can see themselves in your story, and then you become the guide to help them. You become the customer and you become the solution. So I told her, look, the framework for telling a great, powerful story is this. It is, number one, I experienced something, could be terrible like hers, or it could be frustrating like Sarah Blakely from Spanx, right? It was like, I couldn't find, that was made me comfortable, right? It's like, whatever, there's a great spectrum of this, but like, I had some kind of problem. That's step one. Step two, I figured out a solution to that problem for myself. Step three, it works. And I want to help you solve the same problem. And then step four is, so I have this, right? Like what you're doing is you're essentially, I'm the stand-in for you, right? I had this problem, you had this problem, but I spent the time to come up with a solution. So you should trust me because we had the same problem. And the only difference between you and me is that just, I decided to spend my time this way. And so therefore I have this solution for you. And now I really want to help you. That kills. That is a great story to tell. Tell it over and over and over and over again in every possible way. And now when you listen to how founders talk about the origins of their stories, you will hear a version of that story over and over again. And it's because it works. So I do think that it's important. And even if you're not posting every day on LinkedIn, you should be thinking about how to utilize yourself and how you are an asset and how you can start to talk about you in a way that is going to drive the consumer.
That's a great answer. I love how you don't just immediately say it's very important too. It is all based on measuring all the priorities and figuring out where it fits.
Yeah.
I know we're getting short on time. It's amazing how fast time goes because you're very easy to talk to. You got a knowledge of a lot of things. So I have one more kind of burning question in my mind, so I'm gonna throw it out there.
Okay.
You, before the podcast began, you told us a little bit about the things that you're doing. And there's several things, and they all sound very interesting. And I'm always amazed at entrepreneurs and leaders that are able to juggle a lot of balls at once because I'm not that way. I do one thing, and I spend all my time consumed in it because I want to be the best in the world at it.
Yeah.
And then I see other people that do several things, and they're also very good at all of those things. How do you do it? Like, if you had to answer, just how do you juggle so many big responsibilities and do it well?
So first you have to know what you're working on and working towards, right? That's really important. Like I think of the primary project, to be honest with you, as me. Like the primary project is building me. And so that's why I went back to the state of being thing, right? Like I'm thinking about that. And so as a result of that, what I want to do is build new skills, is make sure that whatever commitments I make, I can live up to, but that I also am constantly optimizing for the commitments that I make to make sure that it's only taking the stuff from me that is needed of me. So for example, I co-founded this company with a couple of friends called CPG Fast Track. We are a private network that helps early stage consumer packaged goods founders grow. And that's where I met Jillian actually. And so when we started, we were dividing all sorts of roles and responsibilities. And eventually I realized, you know what, guys, I have a lot else that's pulling on me. I love being a part of this. The thing that I love most is working with my friends in building it and engaging with the founders that we serve. That's what I love the most. What am I able to bring to this that's going to matter the most? I'm a great funnel. I reach a lot of people. I can drive people to it, and I can also easily create a content strategy and then execute that. Right? I think a lot about how the value that I want to provide to things is where I can put in 30% of my brain space and deliver 100% of the value. Like that's important to me. So anything that requires 70% of my brain space, not a good use of my time. So we recalibrated, and I actually just recently took less money from that company on a monthly basis, which I shifted to some of my co-founders so that I could do less and had less expectations on me and just focused on the things that I could do well and impactfully and easily. And that is how I'm thinking about everything that I do. So every time that I add something new to my world, it is forcing me to reconsider everything else in my world and say, am I doing that the perfect way? Is there a way in which that could be optimized? Is there a reason to stop doing that other thing? I say time increases under pressure. Like the more in which you add to your world, the more in which you are forced to reconsider how you're doing everything else. And that's the process that I'm constantly going through.
It's a great answer. And the thing that I take out of it is you've built some things that you are very good at. I mean, some of the best in the world at certain things. And so the way that you provide value in these companies is you take those things that don't take you a lot of time, but then you can leverage them to provide value into those companies.
That's right. And what I found is, I mean, let's like even go to entrepreneur here, right? I mean, entrepreneur takes a lot of my time, as it should. It's my job, and I want to do well, and I always want to. I mean, an anxiety that I carry with me for every project that I commit myself to is, am I living up to what other people need from me and rely on me for? It is unfair to commit to something and then not be able to deliver upon it. So I have to make sure that I'm living up to that. But also what I have found is that over and over and over again, the things that I'm doing externally from Entrepreneur funnel right back to being of benefit to Entrepreneur. I mean, Entrepreneur right now is launching a program called The Boardroom, for example. It's a kind of small group community for entrepreneurs. And a lot of how we're structuring that is informed by what I have learned by running CPG Fast Track. And I will I'll be hired for a speaking engagement where people they're paying me, they're not paying Entrepreneur, but I will meet somebody there and then I'll bring that relationship right back to Entrepreneur. And then there's some new partnership there where Alibaba has had me speak at their conference for 3 years. And then they also started working with Entrepreneur to help promote the conference. So I think what I would encourage leaders at companies to do is to understand that your most entrepreneurial employees, the ones who are going to be thinking outside of the tasks that you are asking them to do, to go back to opportunity set A, those people are actually the most valuable. And you should give them a hell of a lot of string to go out and explore, because everything that they do will benefit not just them, but you too, because you are associated with them.
It's a great wrap-up question. So you have said several times, you've talked to so many founders. You're around the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Like it's crazy. It's incredible. I want to know your single best interview or discussion you've had with the entrepreneur.
Sure.
In 10 years.
Well, it's hard to say a single best because I've had so many incredible conversations, but I'll tell you this one. So I went to 30 Rock a couple years ago and spent maybe 2 hours in Jimmy Fallon's office because I was writing about him for the cover of Entrepreneur. Really nice guy, really gracious with his time. And on the way out, Jimmy shakes my hand. He says, this has been a lot of fun. When you're writing this story, if there's a moment where you just say, I wish I had just asked Jimmy this other question, just reach out to me. It's fine. Just reach out. And I said, Jimmy, I really appreciate that. I am not going to do that because you've already given me a lot of your time and I want to be respectful of that. You're a busy person. Look, I engage with busy people every day. And I think one of the most powerful things that you can do for other people is to respect their time. And so I did not want to take any more of his time. And this is a rule I generally hold to for everything. I just do not invade people's time. So I left and I went home and I started writing this story. And I got to the final part of the story and I said, damn it.
There's a question.
I can't believe I didn't ask Jimmy that follow-up. It would be so much better if I just knew what he would say in this moment. And I agonized over it. And then I thought, well, he did say that I could reach out to him, even though I just promised I wouldn't do it. I'm going to do it. And so I asked if he would get on the phone with me. And it took a week because he is busy. And a week later, I get a call from Jimmy Fallon. And I say, Jimmy, I am so sorry that I have taken up more of your time. And he said, are you kidding me? He said, this is Jimmy speaking now. He's like, I do a lot of interviews and anytime I enjoy talking to somebody, I always offer them to get back in touch if they have additional questions. And you, Jason, are the only person who's ever done it. You have done it. And I said, I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to take up more of your time. You've already been so generous. And he said, absolutely not. That you have reached out to me tells me that you are a thorough person and that you want to get this right. And that's exactly who I want to talk to. And that moment was very impactful for me. And the reason is because it made me realize that we all walk around with these ideas of what is good and what is bad, and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, and where the line is. But we're not actually correct about a lot of that. We don't know if that's true. We might have just made it up in our heads. And if we are not testing those boundaries, if we're not trying new things, then we might actually be missing the greatest opportunities. That story was better because I reached out to Jimmy, but what was even more important was what I had signaled to Jimmy and the experience that I had. And since then, I have been far more proactive with some of the people that I meet in staying in touch, in asking for what I used to think of as more, but that is actually maybe of mutual benefit, of building stronger relationships. And that's just the start. As you build your company, entrepreneurs, do not create stories in your head about what you can and can't do. Constantly test it in the real world. Sometimes you'll be right, but a lot of times you're going to be wrong, and that's going to make the difference.
Excellent advice. I love how respectful you are of people's time, but also constantly a value creator.
Thank you.
That's really neat. Just to wrap it up, you've been a value creator for us, even though you didn't know it. Your content on LinkedIn, your magazine. Actually, I was thinking about it. I'm pretty sure Entrepreneur Magazine is the longest subscription I've ever held.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, and it's just always, I love the list and the value and the stories that it creates. So thank you for being a leader there.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us today. Anything that you want people to know about you that we haven't already talked about before we go?
No, well, I appreciate you having me here. It's an honor, and this has been a really fun conversation. I'll just say, if anyone wants to get more like this from me, I have a newsletter. It's called One Thing Better. Each week, one way to be more successful and satisfied and build a career or company that you love. You can find it by going to onethingbetter.email. That's the web address. So plug it into a browser, onethingbetter.email. And you will just start getting my newsletter. It's totally free. And like I said about responding, because I think that's really important, you will get those emails. If you ever hit reply to any of those emails, it literally does go to my inbox and I will reply. It might take me a minute, but I will reply.
Make your time available too. That's great. Well, thank you for being with us today. If you're an entrepreneur, an aspiring entrepreneur, I know this is going to provide a ton of value. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on the Sidekick Life, where we highlight true sidekicks, entrepreneurs who've got their customers' backs, solve real world problems, and after helping enough people, get to live the life they've always dreamed of. We'll see you next time.